Mayor Knauss,
Here.
Mr. Donahue.
He's here. I saw him.
Here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's all right. Mr. Hammond.
Here.
Mr. Marino.
Here.
Ms. McCready is absent. Mr. McQueen.
Here.
Ms. Zamara.
Here.
Notice of this meeting was provided to the Burnsville News, Courier News, and the Star Ledger, filed with the municipal clerk and posted on the municipal bulletin board on December 24th, 2020. Let me just share my screen and we will get the flag up. Here we go. All right, Pledge of Allegiance, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Stop share. Okay, thank you. We do not have any presentations, so at this point I will open the public session. So if anyone in the public would like to make a comment during the meeting, please raise your hand, either using the participant screen or if you can't do that, just raise your hand and wave at us. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Anthony will be timing you. He will hold up his iPad with the countdown on it. Please give your name and address. Would anyone like to comment? Do I see? I see Olivia. Where'd you go? She had her hand up.
I did. I'm sorry. I popped in a little late. Are we in open session currently?
Yes.
Okay, then yes, I do have my hand up.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I am here tonight as Executive Director of Downtown Bernardsville, but I will say my address is 13 Orchard Street. So I'm sure folks have potentially heard the news or seen the news maybe. I posted on social media with quite a response, and then Burnsville News did a nice feature on the front page last week. But we have been approved as Main Street, New Jersey. So this is very wonderful news. What has not yet been reported, I will say, is that there were 9 total applications received with the state, and they selected 4. And the others are Toms River, Maplewood, specifically Springfield Avenue, and Fairlawn. So we are one of 4 out of 9 that were selected. So obviously very good news. Everybody's very excited. As a result, I will also say we are shifting our energy a little bit to focus a little more on what's involved, because there's going to be a lot of reporting every month. There's going to be some activities that we're going to need to make sure that we're doing consistently. There's also new grants that are popping up that will require a lot more of our attention. So while those are all wonderful, some other things might take a hit. So we are going to postpone some of our events for the rest of this year as a result. And I will say right now, specifically the car show, we're going to put in the spring rather than in a few weeks. Yeah, I know, big bummer. But in the spring, I think it'll be just as good. So we'll make it happen. I think we've been getting some good response too, which is kind of a bummer there too, but at the same time, it makes the most sense. The trunk or treat, we actually are not going to do the specific trunk or treat like we have in the past, but we may be partnering with Recreation to do something for Halloween, but stay tuned on that. And then our ice skating, we're also going to postpone for next year. So those are 3 kind of big events that are coming up that we're just going to put on hold for right now, so we can focus on making sure that we're doing Main Street the right way. Because we obviously want to set ourselves up for success. So this is the right move to make. And I'm sure everyone's going to be excited about the events that we have coming up for next year, since we'll start doing more things in the spring, not just at the end of the year. So that's it, really. If anyone has more questions, I will say on October 6th, we do have our community meeting. So we'll talk about some of this a little bit more. I'm trying to see if someone from New Jersey will come and chat with us, so we can get some more information and answer questions. But Other than that, we are all systems go. So very exciting.
Thank you.
Mayor, do you mind if I ask Olivia a question?
Not at all.
So Olivia, we're starting deliberation at the planning board about center designation for Bernardsville because it's coming up again this year. Do you see or foresee any issues with concurrent center designation, or those two issues not related to what you were just able to accomplish?
I honestly don't know enough
No.
to give an accurate answer on what that center designation entails. I don't think it would be any issue. If you're referring to something like an improvement district concept, is that what you're referring to, or is this something different?
No, it's something different. It's
Something
a specific, but it sounds like it'll be complementary to what you're doing,
Yeah.
and also provide some additional revenue sources for us. So.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they are complementary, like the Transit Village one, for example. It actually has on the application, "Are you a Main Street?" And I believe that helps to say yes. So a lot of times Main Street is actually beneficial to other elements that come into play. So I don't know enough about that one specifically to give a fully accurate answer, but I certainly can find out.
It's actually,
Thank
it's a certification that we had, and now they've changed it a little bit. And what it does is, if you have that, we can get state funding for different things and county funding. But we can also do it through the, what is it? Why can't I think of the name of it? Tom, the application you're working on for the Highlands, for the Highlands.
Yes.
That's another way to get that certification as well. And yeah, I think they'll complement each other, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Chad.
But from what I've seen, most of the time, Main Street's usually a good thing all around. I don't think there's any downsides. I haven't seen it yet, but if anything, so.
And we're working on the Transit Village one, so now that gives us an extra little plug to be able to add that to our application. So, yeah.
Well, and actually, Mary Jane, that's sort of exactly the question, knowing that other piece as well, that not knowing ignorantly if these things could stack one another or if you had to choose between one or the other.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Thank you. I see Johanna would like to speak.
Good evening, Johanna Wissinger from the Environmental Commission. Did I hear Mayor Canoe say that there were no presentations planned this evening? Because I thought we were on. If not, I will use this time to do my 3 minutes and try to truncate what I was going to say.
It's an item of business, but however you want to handle it. But
no, okay. As long as I'm on.
Yes.
Okay, you tell me when. I'm good. Okay.
Yeah, you're on the agenda. Vince, you trying to talk? You're on mute. You have to unmute yourself. Vince? No, can't hear you. Just, the little microphone thing that's got a slash through it, that's what you have to click on.
Anthony, can you unmute him?
I clicked ask to unmute, but that I don't think that worked.
There you go.
There you
Okay.
go.
Is that it?
Yes, you're good.
Okay. Is this the appropriate time for me to make some comments our request to waive the application fee?
Jack, I know we were going to discuss it in executive, but can Mr. Bisogna make comments now?
Vince can certainly be heard now.
Okay.
I'm going to recommend that we discuss it in exec, but I'd love to hear from Vince.
Okay, great. Take it away. 3 minutes.
Okay, I'll be very quick. As you know, we've requested that the planning board waive the application fee. And the reason for that is because about 3 years ago, we filed an application with the Board of Adjustment where we sought permission to construct a multifamily dwelling on property located on the corner of Essex Avenue and Claremont Road. We had about 10 meetings before the Board of Adjustment, and then we heard about the possible change in the zoning ordinance. The ordinance did change, making our use a permitted use. In the meantime, we paid an application fee to the Board of Adjustment of $6,900 approximately. When the zoning ordinance was changed, I contacted the planning board attorney and the Board of Adjustment attorney, and I wrote a letter explaining that the matter should remain before the Board of Adjustment because of the fact that there were certain conditions imposed in 1979 by the previous board that had to be changed. And normally the procedure is that you stay before the same board that imposed the conditions. They had a different opinion. They transferred our case to the planning board. I was in touch with Mr. Mottola. By the way, this is over my objection to transfer. I was in touch with Mr. Mottola. He told me that there was a new application fee of $6,700, $6,800 additional. I told him that I thought it was unfair because of the fact that, number one, this is basically the same application, just being transferred from one board to another board. Number two, it's a multifamily house, a multifamily building that we're seeking before the Board of Adjustment and the Planning Board. So it's the same item. And we already paid a substantial application fee. And we thought in fairness that it would be inappropriate to charge another application fee of $6,700 in order for us to have the application heard by the Planning Board. That's basically our position.
Okay, thank you. And I know our attorney has recommended that we discuss it in executive session. So we appreciate your input.
Okay.
Thank you. And I
Thank
saw,
you. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
absolutely. And
Thanks,
I
Vince.
saw Carrie's hand up. Carrie?
Yeah, yes, my hand is up. I'm sorry. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
I was having difficulty. I couldn't get my hand up. It was impossible with what I'm looking at on my computer screen. So I realized I could just put my hand in the air. Hi, everybody. Carrie Hazelton, Brook Road, Bernardsville. I just wanted to check in with council and see what our plans might be as a borough for availing ourselves of the opportunity of some of the development grants for open space that are available through the county. I know that we've talked about this in the past and we have a lot of things that we want to do. I think some of you are aware that I sit on the Somerset County Open Space Advisory Committee. So in the first year, we've had a handful of applications and they run the gamut from brand new picnic pavilions to renovating existing buildings and bathrooms, putting in new playgrounds, even pool renovations. And when I consider these and work with the group, it seems to me that a lot of the things that we're hearing are things that are at the top of our priority list as our open space and recreation plan that we've recently been working on and we have almost finalized have put at the top of the list. And I just would really encourage council to pursue getting a plan together for one project that they feel would be appropriate for us to do a grant for the county so that when the money is reallocated next year, we'll be in the queue for consideration because other communities are able to move forward with projects. And I think we've got several that would be a good fit from what I'm seeing. And I wanted to just let you know and encourage you to move ahead on getting a project ready and submitting for that.
Thank you, Carrie. Bob Markowick, do you want to respond to that?
Oh, yes. Hello. Hey, Carrie.
Hey.
Yeah, so we submitted one earlier this week. It's going to be before your board in November.
Okay, good. Oh, excellent.
So I've been working with the principal planner from Somerset County on that for like the last month, just tightening things up.
Okay, super. Good to know. Good to know.
So.
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you, Bob, for getting that all together and getting it in. I think it was for pickleball courts. Is that what we?
Yeah, and there's an adult fitness element of it as well. Adult fitness workout area for outside the polo ground. So there's multi-pronged for senior and adult pickleball court and fitness court.
Okay, it'll be interesting to see what folks think. Thank you so much for working to get that together. I really think that we should just get in the queue and take our chances because I think our chances are good.
All right, we're there. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Carrie, what's the dollar amount that these grants cover in terms of the range of funding?
They have ranged from about 300,000 to $500,000 or $600,000, depending on the scope of the project. And these are shovel-ready projects, but my understanding is that we, at the county level, will help you to get your project to shovel-ready in terms of what we want to look at before we, present it to the Open Space Advisory Committee and then eventually to the commissioners. So if you feel like you need a little bit of assistance, it sounds like, Bob has already been working with Tom, and that is the way to go to make sure that when the plan gets there, it's as complete as possible. But yeah, these are substantial grants. These would help us with what we've been trying to do through steering committee and rec committee. And after working with Branstetter Carroll, these would bump us right ahead in terms of things that we want to see done quickly for our community.
Yeah, Jeff, the amount we asked for is right in that 500,000 range that's been given out. So.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Thank
Karen.
you. Good news. Good news.
Yeah, lots of good news. So anyone else from the public wish to be heard at this time? I am not seeing any hands up, so I will close the open session. And I will open a public hearing on Ordinance 2021-1890 concerning special events and amending Chapter 4 of the Borough Code entitled General Licensing. Would anyone in the public like to be heard on this ordinance? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Matt, you are a recreation person, right?
Yes, I am.
Would you move that ordinance, please?
Yes, I would like to move pass ordinance 2021-1890 on final reading and adopt it as published.
I'll second.
All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Hammond,
Yes.
Mr. Marino,
Yes.
Mr. McQueen,
Yes.
Ms. Zamara.
Yes.
The next, I believe we are pulling this one because we're reintroducing it. Is that correct, Jack?
Yes, you can either just not vote on it and let it die on the vine or vote it down. It's being replaced by ordinance 1893 later in the agenda.
Yeah.
There were some changes made to this version at the request of Jeff Price and others. And I thought it was cleaner just to start from scratch rather than going through the amendment process.
Jack, for the benefit of council, do you want me to provide a little bit of color as to why they took a left turn? Is that valuable since we're going to encounter later?
Yes, please. That would be great. Thanks.
So on the way to the planning board, the planning board president, Bob Graham, recognized that the accessory structure language regarding screening was not in the ordinance, and thus it needed to be added, in their opinion, and also Jeff's opinion, it was an omission before it passed. So that's why it's back before the council.
Thank you.
Okay, so can we just ignore it and move on?
Yes.
Okay.
That okay, Anthony? Okay, that's good.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, I will open the public hearing on ordinance 2021-1892 and ordinance amending salary ordinance 2021-1882. And again, this was to allow for the captain's position, I believe, to be included in the salary. Anyone in the public wish to be heard? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Dr. Hammond, would you like to move that one?
Sure, thank you. I move to pass ordinance 2021-1892 on final reading and adopt as published.
Second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Zamara,
Yes.
Mr. McQueen,
Yes.
Mr. Marino,
Yes.
Mr. Hammond,
Yes.
Mr. Donahue.
Yes.
I don't know if you can, if you're in the car, Chad, can you move the next ordinance?
I can. Yep, I'm not moving. So
Okay.
I move that ordinance 2021-1893 establishing a small accessory mechanical equipment setbacks in residential zones and supplementing and amending Article 12 of the Borough Land Development Regulations entitled Zoning be introduced by title, passed on first reading, published according to law, and that a public hearing be scheduled for a meeting beginning at 7 p.m. Monday, September 27th, 2021.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, so we'll have that on the next agenda. Jeff, you want to move the next one?
Yes, thank you. I move that ordinance 2021-1894 authorizing and encouraging, sorry, I'm reading off my phone, encouraging electric vehicle supply and service equipment, EVSE, and make-ready parking spaces and supplementing and amending Article 12 of the Borough Land Use Regulations entitled Zoning, be introduced by title, passed on first reading, published according to law, and that a public hearing be scheduled for a meeting beginning at 7 p.m. Monday, September 27, 2021.
I'll second it.
Yeah, actually, if I can, before a vote, if I could just make a comment quickly, Mayor.
Yes?
So, I made the comment privately that, this ordinance in many ways is discordant from the ordinance that was just passed, redoing our zoning, which allocates 2% of our downtown parking spaces to EV. I'm wondering if it would be more efficient versus passing this now to send this to the planning board to harmonize those two items and bring it back with something that's going to need less revision, or maybe a single ordinance that helps to capture the mandates from the state as proposed here in a more complete way.
Well, what we're doing right now is just introducing it, so it then will go to the planning board.
Okay.
And we'll wait before we finish it. We'll wait for their comments and amendments or whatever.
Well, but I'm guessing that won't happen before Monday, September 27th.
It may not. So then we would just postpone the public hearing.
Yeah.
Or we could just make the public hearing, later.
Yeah.
At a later date. Yeah.
Give the planning board time.
That's
to
what
review
I
it.
would propose.
It's already in place under state law, so there's no urgency.
Yeah. What's the next meeting? It's October what?
It's October, it's a Tuesday. It's Tuesday, October 12th.
Okay. So you want to push it out to there?
I think that would make sense, Mayor.
Okay.
And then I can
What
work
it's
with
worth,
Frank to make
that
sure
would
this
also allow the Public Works Committee to look at it. Not that we're going to change anything, but at least we go over it.
Yeah.
Very good point, Jeff.
Okay. So we'll change that just to the October, I forgot what you said again, 13th.
12th.
12th, October 12th meeting. Did I have a second? I did.
Yeah, yep, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right.
Anthony, could you stress some urgency to Frank when this correspondence goes to make sure it gets on the next agenda?
Sure, I'll definitely do that. And actually, all three of these ordinances that we're introducing are all going to the planning board because they all amend the land use code. So I don't know, do we want to do every one of them on Tuesday, October 12th? Now, I'll definitely send it to Frank tomorrow, but
the thing that I don't know, Anthony, is what else is on the agenda.
Yeah.
I believe we only have one meeting, and the planning board works under very strict rules. They want to entertain a new subject after, I think, 9:30 at night.
Okay.
So if you could sort of cadence this based on importance and urgency with Frank, that would be useful.
Sure, for the 12th. Sure, I will do.
Yeah, the question, the document we were given to consider has draft written on it. Does the state intend to modify it in any way?
No, they asked us to just tweak it to fill in what's pertinent to us, which I believe Jack did.
Yeah, I just put a draft watermark on it because it hadn't been introduced yet.
Okay, Shad, would you like to move the next one?
Sure. I move that ordinance 2021-1895 concerning land development application procedures and amending Article 2 of the Borough and Development Code entitled Planning Board and Article 3 entitled Zoning Board of Adjustment be introduced by title, passed on first reading, and published according to law, that a public hearing be scheduled for a meeting at 7 p.m. Monday, September 27, 2021.
And this, I believe, is at the recommendation of the planning board.
Planning board. Yeah, it was.
Both boards. And the main purpose is to require electronic copies of application materials as well as hard copies.
Right.
And for those of you like me that may not sit on the planning board yet, having electronic copies versus having to go and pick up reams of paper is a big deal.
Yeah, that's a great improvement. I didn't get a second. Do I have a second?
I'll second. But I do have a question because I didn't read that. Maybe I read it wrong. It wasn't either or. I read it as you do electronic, but you also still have to do the paper.
Yes,
You do.
It is both.
Yes.
Right. So is there a reason why they increased the number of paper copies?
Yeah, that was a separate request from Frank Matola, because there aren't enough copies for all the people that have to get them. So people do get hard copies, whereas the Board of Adjustment already requires 21 copies.
Okay, so this is not, just to be clear for everybody, this is not just that it allows people to do electronic application. You're required to do that as well as to the paper application.
That's
Yes.
correct.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
None? Okay. We're moving on to the
Oh, yeah.
resolutions. 21-170A through, wow, there's a lot of them, aren't there? We haven't
Yes,
seen
there
them
are.
in a long time. 21-193.
Mayor, can we pull out 78? I had a question as well as one other one. Hold on one second.
Well,
61.
61.
Hang on.
61.
Yeah, 1161. Resolution 1161.
I think that was in
Not
there
one.
as a reference to one resolution that was amending 11-161.
Yeah, I actually, I called Mr. Pigeon about that. I had made the same mistake. That was just
Oh,
as
really?
a reference to something that previously had happened.
Wait, outside, wait outside sometimes.
And it's not even directly related to the resolution on tonight, but it was the downtown project that was in litigation. It was settled 10 years ago, and that's what that resolution has to do with. And resolution 184, no,
174.
yeah, 174. Is just canceling, because originally all the downtown merchants were going to contribute a special assessment, and that was never done. So I think Leslie has asked that that be canceled at this point.
Well, so that was something we didn't talk about in the finance committee yet, Tom, I don't believe. Does that money get reappropriated, or is that,
Yeah,
give me
so
the
there,
financial implications?
right, so actually, I just want to point out, the reason that's on the agenda is because you're also accepting the annual audit. And it wasn't a written comment in the audit, but it was part of our exit interview that we have. There's no balance in it whatsoever. It just exists as an outstanding item that the auditors ask about every year. So it's just house cleaning at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, if I can just, if any of these, I know, because I had some questions on them, so maybe I can help with some of them. I know that 174, that was the project for the pavers downtown in 2003. And originally the council was going to assess the property owners and then didn't. So that's why that's just been hanging on the books. The 175, the contract with appraisal systems is for our tax reassessments. 178, I think, Chad, you had a question on that. Mid-Atlantic Engineering is doing environmental studies for the property on Bernards Ave.
Okay, yeah, my question was, what are they doing? Because I haven't heard that name float around before.
Yeah, so that's for the Bernards Ave property.
Yeah, we actually retained them some time ago.
Okay.
To do both for 63 Berners and 210 North Finland.
But Chad, to answer your question, it's some environmental due diligence
Right.
to make sure we
It'd be
don't buy
phase one to
something.
start with.
Right.
And make sure we
Thank
don't
you.
buy something that is a
Yeah.
mess.
The place-to-place transfer is 56 degrees, just moving their license from one to the next. 21-188, the flexible benefits plan. I asked Anthony about that. There was only one person who was participating, so it really wasn't worth continuing. Of course, you remember the 21-190, that was us memorializing the fact about having minors consuming alcohol or marijuana.
Yes.
Property, so that's that one. Let me see if there was any other ones. And 21-193 is pulling the trigger on the appraisal for the Audi property.
Yep.
Okay, so those were the ones I know I had questions. Did anybody have other questions?
As you did on 175, are we replacing our appraiser or are we just getting additional assistance for the appraiser?
This is for, it's a renewal. It's how we do our assessments, where we do 8% of properties a year. So this is not for appraisal, it's for the actual inspections.
I used the wrong word. I meant assessment. Thank you. But my question, are we getting a new one because we were dissatisfied, or is this just to renew an existing contract?
The old inspector died last year, the year before. So the assessor actually needs help in just conducting all the inspections because we're doing annual reassessments.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Chad?
No, if there are no more questions, I'll move resolutions 21-170A. Wow, it's 2 pages long, through 21-193.
Have a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Donahue,
Where is he?
he's on mute. I'll go to the next one. Mr. Hammond,
Yes.
Mr. Marino,
Yes.
Mr. McQueen,
Yes.
Ms. Zamara,
Yes.
Mr. Donahue.
Don?
If he's away, I'll just put abstained or
Yeah. there you go.
away. That's right. We have 4 yes.
Okay.
We're good.
Next is my update. And actually, we've had a long time between meetings, but fortunately I got some vacation in, so not a lot happened. On August 26th, I attended a RideWise webinar on EV chargers at places you like to go. Volta was one of the suppliers who did a presentation. Dr. Hammond was also on that webinar. On August 26th, I met with Michael Lianza, who is a senior at Bernards High School. He is applying to college as a business major, and he was asked to reflect on issues in his community and their business implications. So he interviewed me. He was a very impressive young man. September 4th, I visited the shelter that we had here in the high school, and I have to say kudos to our OEM, our EMS, the Red Cross, our CERT volunteers. It was an incredible process that they did to get it up and running in 3 hours. And the county was also very grateful for the help that we provided. They actually said, I think 190 people were processed through the shelter. Not all of them stayed, some were in and out, but they did get checked in and assigned. So it was really an impressive operation. September 5th was the I Love Bernardsville 5K and walk that downtown Bernardsville did, and they were had kind of at the last minute had to relocate because of the shelter, and did a great job moving it all to the front so that we did not interfere with the shelter operations. And I think that was it was a great community event. So thank you to downtown Bernardsville. September 9th, Tom, Johanna, John McDowell, and I met with John Stuckey from Volta, and we're setting up a meeting with him and Brenda Kernan because he was interested in speaking to the shopping center. And that's just, one option to explore. There's a number of other providers out there, but once we get through that process, we'll move it all to the Public Works Committee. September 9th, we had a housing committee meeting. On September 9th, also, the Downtown Bernardsville Board met. We talked about what Olivia said, all that's required as being a main street. And she gave you the update on that. On the September 11th, I participated in the service of remembrance at the library. Very nice ceremony they put together every year. Assemblywoman Ora Dunn was there as well. We don't get that great a turnout, unfortunately, but I know the people that were there really appreciated it. Also on September 11th, I attended the first games for the youth football program on the turf field. They said they haven't played on that field in 5 years, so they were thrilled, and it was a great day. The county calls really was about storm recovery. They actually answered, they said 13,600 calls in 24 hours. Did 620 water rescues. Somerset County lost, 5 lives were lost, and they had 83 families temporarily placed. They had 10 inspection teams go out and they closed 24 bridges. They're working on, I think 8 have been reopened so far, maybe more, one of which was ours on Lower Mount Harmony. And I believe they've started work on that. And tomorrow we have a meeting with Alan Zakin to talk about the energy aggregation program. I believe Jeff and John are going to sit in on that as well. And that is my report. Questions, comments? All right, I will turn it over to Mr. Chernetsky.
Thank you, Mayor.
Can I just make a quick comment to amplify on what you said about the great job that OEM did at the shelter? I just want to make a pitch for our need for more CERT volunteers. So if anybody wants to be part of the community emergency response team, and this is the type of thing they do, please reach out to either Lieutenant Remian at the police department or Officer Tim Richard, and they'll get you an application.
Yeah, and I believe they're working on setting up some more trainings coming up too, so.
That's correct.
Yeah. All right, back to Tom.
Yep. So just to piggyback on what you were saying, Mayor, about the preparations for that, I would just add 2 other little items. One is to thank all the residents that stepped forward in answering the call for assistance when we put it out there. We sort of got a curveball thrown our way. Well, everyone did, especially the residents that were looking for shelter, but providing some support for pets and animals. It was a wonderful response, so thank you to them. And as Councilman Hammond mentioned, the CERT team and support for them. On the agenda tonight under resolutions, 21-177, that's a grant that the Chief Valentine and his team work on to continue to build up our resources so we can respond to those sort of things and to build up the CERT team. So there's a lot of work that goes into being able to respond the way we did. And I think council in particular should take some pride in having built that up over the years. The New Jersey American Water Company waterline construction project should be wrapped up at the end of this week. The pool season is over, and we finished at about $85,000 over what we brought in 2020, which is not a great measure. So looking at 2019, the last normal year, we came in about 40,000 over from that. So really great progress.
Yeah, Tom, if that's great news. Bob, I hope you're still listening. Big clap in hand to you for what you did there.
So. If he's not, I'll make sure to pass that along.
Oh yeah, thanks, Chad. I'm on.
There it is. Department heads are going to get preliminary budget forms this week. The first project we're working on, it's why we're getting started early, is to develop a pretty detailed budget manual, which I think would be very useful for newly elected officials, so you can really see the ins and outs of the municipal budget process. And in some respects, it's also almost like a zero-based budgeting approach to budgeting, in that every line item is going to be discussed and described and justified. At our next council meeting, council is going to be asked to consider a variety of changes to the Personnel and Policies Procedures Manual. The majority of them coming from recent state legislation, and our insurance carrier wants us to update the manual to reflect those laws. Along those lines, there's going to be annual mandatory training for supervisors and managers in mid-October with respect to workplace conduct matters. And that wraps up my report.
Thank you. Okay, now we are up to recreation. So, Bob, you had a pretty intensive report there. So would you like to, yeah, thank you for, it wasn't a lot of time for you to get through all of the recommendations and for your committee to together. So thank you for getting that for us for tonight.
Sure. I want to thank the committee and the chairperson, Ted Dolan. They did an excellent job. We met 4 or 5 times, believe it or not, since the last meeting on Zoom. Councilman Marino was in a few of those. We had a nice, solid crew that kept meeting every Tuesday night. So I'm really happy for volunteers, during the end of the summer on vacation, to get this task done. It was pretty nice. And these are a lot of preliminary stuff. I don't know if Anthony wants to pull it up, but basically what we did is we took a look at things that we wanted to initially recommend to spend some funds on. We didn't do it, this is just the rec committee. There's a lot of other committees that will be looking at this and council as well. So we wanted to make these recommendations to council from what we had seen looking through the Branstetter Carroll, from what we had seen in our meetings, our steering committee meetings, pretty much all the research we've been doing. We also looked at a 2019 ad hoc committee, Mayor, that I believe you put together.
Yes.
And that was for the referendum that was coming out.
Right.
So they had a lot of things that kind of matched up with what we were looking at. We used some of the price estimates from that and some of the recommendations from that as well. So what we did, we took a holistic look on things that we'd like to start. And, walkability and connectivity was one of the main things that came out of the master plan. And actually speaking with, that's a very daunting one. So speaking with Borough Administrator who has experience bringing other towns connectivity, we talked about, sort of a longer term master plan, with a borough, with an engineer that specializes in connectivity. All of the easements, different type of sidewalks, all those type of things that, you really would be the job of the city planner to look at, to do an in-depth study, to, take a look at that, different ways we can link up the current trails we have. So that was kind of something that we wanted to put out there at front, that we do want to look at this connectivity, but it's so multifaceted that we need a longer term plan for that. And it's a lot out of the scope of a lot of what we do in the borough, because we're a small borough, so we might not have some of the positions that look at these types of things. So our recommendation, yeah.
Bob, so the 3 master plans you have on the list, is there an economy of scale? Can they be done by one firm, or they have?
Yes.
Or they can. Okay.
Absolutely. So what we put out the RFP for the Parks and Rec and engineer, I believe.
Yes.
So that would be their master plan. So then it would be ready to go. It wouldn't be a third party. Brent said did an excellent job, but we wouldn't be going back to them. We'd be looking at local people that get the RFP that are going to be doing the work. So the plan is going to come from that type of engineer. So master plan is not necessarily back to Brandstetter. It's more of the engineer that we find. They're going to kind of come with, construction ready projects as recommendations. So that's the language in there for the master plan is more pointing towards that for each of those facilities. We took a look at some of the things in the borough, that need to be done, as far as in the far left column there, the quick hits and the infrastructure. There does need to be maintenance and signage for the existing trails. I've spoken with some other departments, John at Public Works and the road department, about doing some, we have guys that cut, we do tree work when there's storms, about maybe doing a couple days in the off season when we actually do maintain trails. And I think, I know Councilman Hammond and some other people in the environmental committee, Carol Hazelton, Ed English, they do these things when they volunteer. So maybe some trail days where we have the borough doing some things followed up by our volunteer, and we have a cohesive, kind of take care of what we have. Because, there are a lot of, questions that come in about what we're doing at the trails right now. So I think looking at some of those, and I've spoken to residents, I've walked out to the trails and I've seen some of what they want to do. So it's a matter of meeting with them, photographing what we have, getting back, because we have some nice trails in the borough, and that's what came through in the master plan. We looked at some safety stuff. Now, we did look at ADA, but we did not want to make recommendations on ADA from the recreation committee level. We wanted to leave that to the engineer and the planner, and I didn't want to put it there because it's a buzzword, but we do need some ways to access some of our properties, but we feel it wasn't our place at this point in time. I didn't want to put it up there because then I didn't want ask it for examples and I didn't have them to come to you. So that is something that we want to build in to these updates, and when we do these trails. And that also, when we get the master plans for these facilities, they'll help us with that as well. So just because it's not represented on this chart right here, it's not something that we don't want to do like immediately when we start building these things. There's some light upgrades to basketball courts that are easy. We could do, if you could actually play basketball at night. We have had over 100 kids in each one of our outdoor basketball programs. And I think, the outdoor sports, since COVID has been a hit, and I think it's going to continue. Even though we're going indoors, I think it's still going to continue. We have a few things at the pool that are quick hits, umbrellas, benches. And before we do this big scope of a master plan, looking at a gazebo or a structure that can be used for community events at the pool, because we had great feedback from our concerts. We had birthday parties for a weekend sometimes. We had different types of things, and we feel there's a spot at the pool complex we could use with a gazebo that might be able to fill some of the need for community programming, arts, and entertainment. Bring the general public in there as well for some of those things down in the bottom part. So that's something we looked at. Signage for parks, obviously, it's a lot of people don't, not only signage for parks, but an overall look at the parks and trails that we have, because I spoke to people during this master plan process that wanted trails, but they've never been to Cross the State Garden, or they've never been to the Audubon, and they live in Bernardsville and they want trails. So I think that kind of combining those things with signage for what we do have and building the awareness is going to help, move forward. And I know there was a desire for bike racks. I put that on there from, council meeting prior. We'll talk about that, where they're going to be. We just want to mention that. And then for the passive and recreation space, open space properties, like I talked about, kind of looking at what we're going to do with those. We thought as a recreation committee that those would be really nice, open, natural spaces. There was, an amphitheater was in one of the Branch Center Carroll, a little more advanced construction on some of those sites. We thought that they would be better as accessible natural sites and work with trails. And I know that there's going to be a desire with the downtown redevelopment for some sort of amphitheater or concert space down there. Been made aware of that by a few people working on that project. So just our recommendation as a committee was to have those more natural areas and to kind of work on getting access through parking to those properties at this point in time. And then, as I kind of laid out there, we develop more trails and then expand as we move forward, and we have someone that can really take a look at what we could fit back there. So that leads us to the polo grounds, which we felt is kind of the most go-ready place we have to do some upgrades, because we're looking at parking in other places. We're looking at different types of things that have to happen to get us there. On the polo grounds, we want to make sure the drainage is up to date when we do this walking path that's going around. Sometimes there's ponding back between the turf field and the blower polo. That has to be remedied. We want some exercise stations. That's part of something I put in for the grant with the county along the walking path. I put that in with the pickleball project, which is below. Those two things, for the adults and seniors, it gives them something at the polo grounds. So it's kind of a wellness area for the entire community. We already have the youth and the pool and the families. I think there's a couple demographics we could hit there. And then the park facility at the polo grounds, when you go to a lot of these other towns, they do have, most of them do have some sort of building with bathrooms and, for their football and their sports programs. I think that's something that's lacking at the polo grounds. Taking a look at where we can put that. That's where the engineer who's looking at the polo grounds would tell us the best spot for it. But something to serve bathrooms, a snack shack to service the programming going on at the polo grounds, maybe some sort of space in there for the teams that utilize it. It's kind of, the polo grounds is the hub of our programming with the pool and then the courts and the school. So we thought that that would be an effective thing to put in there. And then for the pool, there's a lot, there's plans, Branstetter has master plans for pools. This and that. We thought that, might have been a year or two away. We did well this year. I think that adding the gazebo and keeping the programming up and then looking into a pool remodel like Branstetter has done in some other local areas would be the way to go. But that, looking at initial investment now and then later on kind of making that more of a priority. There's a few things we left off here on Ravine Park that kind of hinges on the dam project. So to make recommendations on that right now there's a lot of up in the air on that. And then, Claremont with the old Claremont clubhouse, something has to go there. Well, whether it's demolished and, kind of some sort of just bathrooms and the gazebo, which would be great for there. I think that was the committee really liked that idea. But we felt that the polo grounds was kind of, in terms of the athletic planning, that would go before the Claremont fields. Then, as in active recreation, the fields at Kiwanis were recently redone. I've heard nothing but good things about that. So we're looking at the Rose Bowl in Claremont, bringing those fields up to the Kiwanis kind of standard. And if anybody has questions, I'm sure I'd left some stuff off. But that was our initial look at what we want to do overall, and some of the things that we could get started on, and kind of a brief timeline.
I mean, Bob, maybe I'll make a couple comments first. I commend you and the Recreation Committee for doing good work here. I guess the most pressing question is, so working with limited resources, I mean, knowing how much you can do as well as the committee, how do you recommend staging this? Or are you saying to us, look, if you allocate all of this money, we can get started right now and we got this, which I'm guessing the latter probably is the circumstance, right?
Yeah, there's confidence there from the committee. Like I mentioned before, the 2019 committee, there were a lot of people ready to go in 2019 on that committee that are on the current rec committee that are ready to see these projects through. So they've been planning and thinking about them for a few years now.
Yeah.
So I do think, yeah.
I guess that I'll ask it differently. Can you manage all of this at once, or do we need to gate this out over time?
Well, that's a good question. We'd have to work with other borough staff and an engineer, and we'd have to lay out where we want to go and where the funds are going to be. So I guess that's kind of get back to your other question.
And we have three options for funding. We have the open space funds that we, approved with the referendum. We have capital, and then, your annual budget for some of the smaller things. But some of them may have to bond for.
Yeah. Well, I mean yes, good. Go ahead, Jeff.
That was me, but Chad, to answer your question, yes, I think that is possible to manage these projects.
Yeah, I think there's also going to be a lot of hurry up and waiting when it comes to things like trails and paths because of regulations and permitting. So yeah, I would say we should probably identify one like that, and then one where we can attack it right away.
I mean, look, when I look at this, clearly in my mind, and I'm speaking for myself here, the items and the quick hits, I think these are things that we have tangibly been talking about for a long time, and they just need to get done. Things such as the 3 master plans, I think we need to bundle those and get those moving. And I also I highlighted in green the items all in sort of the second column here for passive recreation, because I know that was number 1 priority in the Branstetter plan. As I go to the right, I think these are all things that need to be done. I was concerned that we would overload Bob if we said yes to all of them quickly. So I guess 2 questions. What's the process, Tom, for getting these allocated? Where there's a couple of these I think need more information. But what kind of guidance are you looking for from council to get things started here?
Right now, the thing that I'm really looking forward to most is getting an engineer on board. So, and we're going to have to think through, and that person's going to have to help us think through phasing.
Yep.
So that's going to be probably the most important and time-consuming thing. But I'm going to look to the committee to identify some of those easy things like the benches and dugouts and things like that. And a lot of those we can pay for as we go.
So are you looking for some general guidance that we are aligned tonight, Tom, so that we can start moving these individual items forward?
I think for us, what's important to know is that you like these suggestions, that, you know, if we start developing them, start bringing contracts forward, that we have the general, your intention is that these are the good things to work on.
I mean, I'll give you my personal opinion. I think there's a lot of them here. I think this is right on the mark. I think we need to refine budgets on some of these as we get more specific proposals, but I'm wholeheartely behind moving these forward, especially the whole concept of moving Polo to the next, sort of the next iteration of his existence.
So if you like these things, let us go back to the board and just kind of like put them in numerical order as to what we think can happen first, what should get started, because it's going to have a lead time, and we'll get back to you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm only an N01 though. I want to hear from the rest of council.
Yeah,
Well, that was the question. That was actually the question I was going to ask: is how do we prioritize these? And I think there's maybe a little bit of redundancy. So, for example, you have signage for parks under the quick hit column, but on the next column over, you have trail and park map signage. That map can be easy to make and feeds right into the signage thing. I think this is great. I'll just say that there's nothing here to criticize. This is all. I'll agree 100% with Councilman McQueen. I had one question. I remember, maybe I missed it in here, and I got to give kudos to Bob, to you, and to the committee, and to the chairperson of the committee, Ted Dolan. This was a Herculean task in a short period of time, and I think it's really been a good job. I seem to remember in the multi-hundred pages of the Branstetter Carroll report that there was discussion of an indoor facility, and I didn't really see it here. I know that's a long-term plan, but is that something that we decided to scrap?
For these initial recommendations, we believe there's some quality indoor programming space that in the already acquired 251 Claremont. You know, there's parking needs up there, as I put on there, parking expansion. But yeah, as far as that type of building, that would definitely be longer term. So these are the kind of things we wanted to get going immediately. There had been, you know, he said maybe put it at 271, but as we discussed 271, we like it natural. We like the biking and the hiking and the path around the outside right now. So we kind of we nixed it from that location. I don't know if the borough acquires flat land in the future or whatnot to make that recommendation, but right now that's kind of on the back burner, yes.
And the second last question, just real fast, is under the quick hits. I mean, are we waiting for the engineering report in order to do this? There are some there that are under a safety column that those safety ones ought to be done ASAP.
Yeah, that's my thought too, Jeff. I'd like to see those before us quickly.
Yeah, and I'd like to add too that again, this was definitely not an easy report to go through. You know, it's a lot of substance there, which is great because there's a lot to look at. But the committee really did discuss each one of these buckets, so to speak, in great detail. There were none of these that were rubber stamped at all. You know, there was a lot of discussion about each individual piece, and you know, kudos to Ted and to Bob and to the other committee members, because as Bob said, there were several meetings or meetings added to the schedule to get through this. And not only this, but also to kind of get a preliminary dollar amount for these, knowing that, you know, going forward that could change. And Councilman Hammond mentioned a little bit of redundancy. That's true. What I'll add though, and we talked about this, is that when you really look at it, they also do complement one another. And so when you look at one bucket and looking at one of the goals. If you do that, that will kind of have a positive effect on other ones. So we talked about that. But again, a lot of really fruitful discussions from the committee, a lot of questions that were posed by committee members. And I think at the end of the day, this really reflects all of the work that was put in by the group itself. So really, for me, it's just, like I said, high praise for everyone who worked on this.
Okay, you know, as I look at this from a managerial perspective, the things that kind of jump out as priorities, getting back to Jeff's question, I would say the top three would be,
Yes.
we have to manage anything we do to the pool. We're going to have to manage in and around pool season. So there's going to have to be some careful timing around that. And then if the grant comes through for the pickleball court project, I think strategically we'd want to get that done as soon as possible so we can apply for the next grant. And then, of course, the trail planning. I was the assistant manager in Randolph when they did their trail system, and that takes some considerable lead time, but well worth it.
Yeah, but to your point, Tom, let's get the monies appropriated for the short-term items that are safety. As we think a little bit more, and also I'd ask if it's possible if you can bring this list of financial considerations to the finance committee, so we can discuss either near-term or long-term financing or payment options for these various items and to consider them.
Will do.
Have you already issued the RFP for the Parks and Recreation engineer? Is that, or it's
I believe we have. Yep.
excellent? Do you know when it's due?
I don't. Not off the top of my head.
All right, but no, I think that's a great first step. I think once you have that person in place, we can really start moving forward on prioritizing and working out a phasing. So
I know council authorized it about a month ago, so shouldn't be that far away.
Right. But Bob and your committee and Ted, outstanding job, as everyone else has said. We really appreciate you putting in that extra time to get this to us, and it's exciting. I'm looking forward to moving this forward, so thank you.
Yeah. So, and Mary, before we leave the topic, I mean, I don't want to, I guess I'm going to press the issue. Is there any way, Tom, that we can get some of these items appropriated at our next meeting? Because some of them seem to be very clear, and let's get rolling. That we've been talking about things for a while, and I'm excited and eager not to be rash, but to get to things that I think we have some universal decision on.
I think we can do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Group accident policy. Anthony, you put this, I think they're looking to renew our volunteer accident insurance.
Right, yeah, it's a 3-year plan and it expires shortly from today. It expires on September 17th. And yeah, we would just need a motion and a second and a vote to renew it. It's to cover any accidents from our volunteers, like mayor, council, committee members, if they get injured while doing their duties as a committee member.
And is the rate about the same? No major increase?
There's no major increase from the past, no.
Yeah, it's,
so can I have a motion to renew our policy?
I'll move to renew the policy.
Wow.
Then I'll second.
Okay. So can we just do an all in favor? Yeah.
Yeah.
All in
Yeah.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You know that, opposed? All right, good. 6G, we are moving to executive, and 6H. Johanna, you're up. Oh no, this is the shade tree. I'm sorry, shade tree ordinance. I liked the change on this, which was including the contractors who take the trees down are equally as responsible as the owners. I thought that was a really good addition. So I think that's a positive move to help prevent what happened at Ross.
There's another addition there that you have to get a permit to take down a dead tree
I was
above a
wondering the
certain
same.
size. Sorry?
That's true. There's a second addition that came from the
Yeah,
shade tree committee. Any tree with a DBH greater than 10 inches, regardless of its condition.
I think that's a burden to require a permit to take down an obviously dead tree.
Well, and
I agree with Jeff.
Yeah, and you don't know, sometimes don't have enough time. If there's a storm coming and you've got a dead tree, you want to get.
Exactly. So I'll agree with you, Mayor, 100% that I think it's good to put the burden, or share the burden with the tree company in terms of what you referenced. But I think that one additional line that said that we need to get a permit to take down a dead tree regardless of the circumstances, I can't support that.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jeff.
If that's the consensus, you can certainly take it out and introduce it without that addition to 13.6B.
How does the rest of the council feel?
Is there anyone here from Shade Tree who can speak to why it was added? Like it's a triggering event?
Yes, I think it was added because some people think a tree is dead and it really isn't. And once the tree is that large, they wanted to be able, the tree conservation officer and the forester wanted to be able to see it to be certain that this tree really should be taken down. And as far as if it is an emergency and it's hazardous, people are never prohibited from removing a tree if it's hazardous. So that's should not be a consideration. So yeah, I really can't speak any more to it, but I know they were concerned that tree was really dead.
But that language about hazard is not in the amendment.
It could be the general statement and not in this.
So if I could just offer one thought, I spoke with Jeff this morning on the ordinance, and it is currently a requirement that if a tree is over 10 inches in diameter, you need a permit to remove it. This adds that you need a permit to remove it under the dead tree section. So if this tree is dead, you currently are not required to get a permit, but there's no verification that it's dead. So there have been incidences where our team's been called out, they received complaints, someone's cutting down trees. We get there and the person who cut it down is claiming that it's a dead tree, and we may not always agree that it was dead, but they thought they could remove it because they thought it was dead. So I think that's the origin of that one line that was added.
Well, I think there's a time factor, and I guess there's the cost factor as well. I'd be happy. I mean, a resident could submit a picture to the shade tree officer just to affirm that this is dead. I mean, I think it's pretty easy to tell dead from alive, but
well,
I just have a real problem.
I was going to say, Jeff, you don't have to be a trauma surgeon to determine if a tree is dead, do you?
I just think, again, we're trying to streamline things and make things user friendly in the borough, and adding additional permitting just concerned me. Are people going to try and circumvent the things by saying it's dead rather because they want to avoid things?
Yeah.
I guess, yes, that's possible, but there must be a better way than requiring a permit. And then knowing that our officers are overworked now in terms of their workload.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jeff.
I think if you reread what it says in this paragraph, you're talking about letter B, 13.6B.
Yes.
The part that was added is just redundant, or actually contradicts what it says in the first sentence. So if you just took that out, it says, provided any person relying on this exemption without prior consultation must prove that it was dead at removal, right? And then it says, removal of more than 6 dead trees shall require prior inspection and approval, but not a permit. And then it says, removal of 1 tree requires a permit. So it's really just, right? Am I?
And I don't have the language in front of me, but I think that last sentence says regardless of the circumstances. So I thank you for pointing this out. There's a lot of contradictions here.
Yeah, so the first sentence says you don't need a permit, but then the third sentence kind of says that you do. And then the middle sentence says it has to be more than 6. So I think
And
the
the
whole
first sentence does
paragraph.
require after the fact verification.
Yeah, they're just, the only difference is the 10 inches. I think that's what, you can remove a tree that's dead, but you need a permit if it's 10 inches or bigger. Greater
Any tree, dead or alive or whatever,
than,
greater than 10 inches.
Want it.
Yeah. Yes, then
you must have a permit.
Right.
So if that's what they're looking for as the goal, then I just think it has to be way more clear than this, just for the sake of the tree officer. And you mentioned we had incidents where it was just unclear. The goal is to get people to comply, and do the pre-approval process, getting a permit if necessary. You just have to make it very clear when they need it and when they don't.
Yeah, there's a tree. What we struggle with is, a tree could be hollowed out because it's rotting from the inside, but it's still full of greenery. And a resident thinks, well, if it's not dead, it's going to die. So it's not a healthy tree. And that's sort of where the rub comes in, where I'm not sure we could ever legislate this to solve the problem.
I mean, look, I guess I have, my opinion hasn't changed. If a tree's dead, I think the homeowner should take it down.
Has it been an issue? How many trees with a DBH of greater than 10 inches have been removed that weren't dead?
It is standard work of the enforcement team. They're constantly struggling with people calling, complaining about their neighbors taking down trees. And we sort of get into these discussions.
Mm-hmm. So what do we want to do with this ordinance? Do we want to just remove that sentence and then introduce it as it is? Or do you want to send it back?
You could remove that sentence, adopt it with at least the contractor liability, and then send it back to the Shade Tree Committee and say they'd like to pursue this, to come up with clearer language.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. We just take out that one new sentence because I think the contractor language is important to get in there.
I agree.
I agree about the contractor language, but I don't think we should vote on this. I think we should send it back because it's unclear. And they can, tell them that we agree with the contractor language, but the rest of it's garbled.
What I'm suggesting, Jeff, is that we take that language out, adopt the contractor language, adopt the ordinance without that language, and then send it back to them.
Right.
And if they'd like to pursue it, come back to us with clarified language.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Thanks.
We're just introducing it now.
Yeah, I'm fine with that approach.
Okay. All right, would someone like to introduce it as amended? You don't have to read the whole thing.
No. It's the same language we do for introductions above.
Yeah.
Do we have a number for it? Or not
Yeah,
yet?
2021-1896.
Who's Public Works? We want to do it under Public Works?
Yeah, I'm just looking for, I move to introduce ordinance 2021 1-1896, an ordinance amending the Borough Tree Protection Ordinance and supplementing and amending Chapter 13 of the Borough Code. To be introduced by title.
As amended, Christine, right?
It says
As
revised.
amended, yes.
And then a public hearing on
September 28th.
27th.
I'm sorry, September 27th.
Okay. Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, abstentions or no's? I'm sorry, I didn't say any opposed. Okay. Now it's Johanna. Sorry about that. And we have your letter in our packet.
Good, good. Good evening. Johanna Wissinger on the Environmental Commission. Recently, I read that the evolution of human behavior, it's experience rather than cognition that prompts people to action. The point, I think that Storm Ida has raised concern and more awareness of the problems of stormwater runoff. And this past week, I received quite a few emails and phone calls regarding questions about green infrastructure and storm dry wells, et cetera. Consequently, we wanted to do this in a timely way. We thought it was appropriate for us to have a written statement and for me to make this public appearance. I'm not going to read that statement. I do have some comments though, and I would like to summarize it just in case the public wants to look into this or you have further questions. I hope that you do read it. I realize that you received it quickly. It was timely for us, and that's why, but I think the photos and some of the information is valuable. To summarize, there are three main concepts. One is that we presented a brief history of the progress that Bernardsville has made with installing our rain gardens, which is at present the most popular stormwater treatment that we have, one of the best management practices. Second, it provides our statement of our pursuits and the standards that we believe are important for us to support. And third, it expresses intent and goals of managing stormwater that we would like to have. Two of these goals I would really like to underscore. The first is we want to continue and intensify our efforts to educate and facilitate rain gardens and other green infrastructure best management practices for stormwater for residential properties. This would be through information, PR, and grant applications that we would make. This would be guidance. Now, the rationale, the reasons for focus on residential properties is because they are very important just in number. I mean, starting with the library and Naveen Pond was a good choice. First of all, they're municipal, so it made it a little bit easier. And they were functional, important function, but they were also visible. So one of our goals initially was that people would become aware. We want to continue to be to promote that. Other reasons are residents really just by numbers, they increase the ability of, because the water sources from a lot of places, especially in the mountain. Additionally, rain gardens help with pollinators, and if lawns are subsequently being reduced, it also reduces chemicals that wind up in the water and on neighboring properties. Second, we would like to provide information about Rutgers Cooperative Extension, their water resources program, and apply for grants for their engineering design for green infrastructure for managing roadway drainage. I don't know if the council members or Mayor Knudsen have already been approached by this, but this is important and something we can both do and retrofit for roads. Roads are ideal conduits for stormwater, and because they usually have smooth surfaces, you can build up velocity, which could wind up being damaging to property. Also, there's a big feed into them because properties, either by design or by nature, feed into the side skirts of a road or the road itself. So pursuing this is worthwhile, and we think that we would like to go that way. So in conclusion, this outreach to you tonight is also an opportunity for us to thank you for your support. I think we have a good start with rain gardens, and we want to continue to pursue this. I think it's wise for me to say that whenever the EC wants to have another rain garden, we always come every time before you. I know Mayor Knudsen already knows of the point. She's been at all the initial important meetings with Chris Objecta. But if we pick any others, we will do that. We will continue to seek grants and continue to have our networking with the watersheds and ANJAC and Rutgers and everyone else that can help Bernardsville achieve this. I think that it's a difficult challenge to change people's frame of mind or paradigm to accept rain gardens. They don't look the same as lawns, but they can be pretty, and they're definitely functional. And they're one of the best things out there. It's not only the New Jersey DEP, but this is kind of a universal acceptance that this is one way that we can approach working on our runoff. Thank you. I'm willing to answer questions, and I also see that I have some members from the EC supporting us, and so if you have any questions, I'll be glad to address them.
I want to make a quick comment. Yeah, I read the statement I think was well written, and it provides a great deal of information too. I'll tell you what really stands out to me that are the pictures that you included, especially the before and after pictures. I mean, you talk about raising people's awareness and just kind of showing them like the significance of this, but you have the pictures, and I'm looking at them now. The one with the clear day with no heavy rain on July 30th, 2021. And then you have the other one with the heavy rain on June 8th, 2021. And I mean, it's very striking difference between, clear, no rain versus heavy rain. And then you have the other picture with from September 10th with all the rock and everything that was in the pond. I mean, it's striking to look at. But I think when we talk about raising awareness, I mean, even for people who have even little to no understanding of it, it's cliche to say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but I think in this case, they really are. And so I appreciate it just as someone who maybe doesn't have as much knowledge, because I think it helps people understand why all of this, everything that you just said is so important to do that. So that's just a kind of a general comment.
Okay, maybe we can have our tech person post them so more people can see it. I'm next to a stream, and it's amazing what storms do to a stream that I can see. I mean, I'll see the same kinds of things, the silting, the movement of stuff. I saw one of those white PVX, what they call them, pipes that was pushed. I mean, that's a lot of pressure that can come through a stream. Amazing.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you. I think rain gardens, the ones you've put in are absolutely beautiful, and they have really filled in really nicely. And I don't know if you consider maybe doing a program at the library when they open up again for the public, in how easy it is really to put in a rain garden. I think that would be very useful because I think it may seem overwhelming to somebody to do, but it really isn't that difficult to do a small one on your property. I think the more we educate people, and thank you for all the good work your commission is doing. Really, stormwater is going to become a bigger and bigger issue every year, so we need to really face it.
Johanna, hi, it's Chad. You said something that struck me that I want to ask you a question. So you're talking about the value of rain gardens in stormwater management. And I know that you and I have been locking horns metaphorically a little lately about, impervious coverage as well as, within the residential zones, permanent retention of stormwater. Is there a way, and I'm asking this honestly, that we can incorporate rain gardens and other types of stormwater mitigation in a way? Because look, as compared to a physical structure,
we're already doing that. Whenever we go before the Board of Adjustment, we think about all of the things. It turns out that I'm focusing on rain gardens because that's something popular. It's working. I can probably network. Mayor Canusa's suggestion for the library is very good, but we always think of it is in conjunction with other things. It could be a berm. Yeah, very important to know all of them. The other ones aren't as familiar to people and maybe not as significant to apply, but absolutely we do that.
And I guess I'm wondering, is there a more permanent solution that we can add to our ordinances to incorporate things like rain gardens that may be more aesthetically pleasing to allow homeowners to do things in a more liberal way?
Yeah, that's good. We all actually, the March 1st or 2nd ordinance that the DEP, New Jersey DEP, requested every municipality in town to, that's inclusive in it. It's inclusive to, they list all of the other stormwater best management practices. Now it's another step to, get rid, to actualize it, to really do it. It's difficult, but we don't have to shy away from difficult, but for sure, you already have it. If you wanted another ordinance, but you have it already.
Well, but see, I think, and maybe I'm mistaken.
I think the existing, the stormwater ordinance that we recently passed was a compromise, but I think that it was never meant to be a final document. I think it's an iterative process. Certainly the recent storm has emphasized the need to do this. There's a lot of opportunities for what people can do both on their individual properties as well as to benefit the borough in general. I think this is something that we're going to be revisiting periodically.
Yeah. And Jeff, I know that you said on the committee, I would propose, because I could be mistaken, but I believe the only official mitigation strategy listed in our current ordinance is the stormwater maintenance that we have in regards to a drainage system.
I couldn't hear you. Were breaking up. I couldn't hear that.
No, so I think the only listed solution is a permanent stormwater well. Maybe there's some room there to talk about other strategies that may be more beneficial than the issue that's caused us some trouble here lately.
Excuse me, I don't want to put any pressure on Kathy, but Kathy is my ordinance guru. So Kathy, am I incorrect by saying that the ordinance that the NJDEP requested all the municipalities also includes a list of green infrastructure, stormwater regulations, or am I mistaken about that?
If I may, what it says is to utilize best management practices, which include green infrastructure, listing bioswales, rain gardens, etc.
Filters.
Okay. But I think locally we're even more restricted than that. I think locally we have to go to a formal infrastructure, but I can look.
Okay. Any other questions for my other members?
No. Good. Well, thank you so
Okay,
much.
well, thank you for giving me this time. I
Yeah.
think it's important and we wanted to, just express where we're going.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
Time that you commit, honestly. Thank you. Next on the agenda, correspondence. I don't think we had any, did we?
No.
Okay. Any unfinished business? Any business? Can I have a motion for executive session?
I'll move that we go into executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We didn't say we're not taking any action or coming back to take any action, right? So we're done. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for attending. I always like to see the list of participants, and it's nice to know that the public comes. So thank you.